we're just getting started. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to try and actually find this here on my phone. There. I'm going to try and find this on my computer where, so I can monitor it and see what's being said. Ah, there we go. Okay, so we're up and running. And my volume is turned off. Now there's somebody watching, I'm not quite sure who it is. If you remember, please let me know. So we'll just start off as we usually start off. Neil Clark here from Falkirk Piping, www.falkirkpiping.com. Welcome to the channel. This is a members live stream, so we do ask that people join the channel as members. You get certain perks, not a lot, but you do get certain perks, including this once a month live stream. If you've joined us, you'll also see that you can't, unless you're a member, comment on the chat function there. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me or Facebook message me on Falkirk Piping, info@falkirkpiping.com, or indeed if you're on the Facebook, Falkirk Piping and Glenbervie Folk Duo. So two of you watching, good morning. And I better say, first of all, we have a new member this morning. So Dagmar, thank you very much for joining as a gold member, and I hope you enjoy the service. As usual, please, if you have any suggestions, you think I can actually make this a little bit better within reason, please just let me know. So let's get in about it. We're set for an hour. I don't know if we'll actually spend an hour going over this stuff or not. And as usual, the subject today is competition, solo competition preparation and performance. And very much this will be coming from my own experiences. So the first thing I think we'll do is what's my solo experience? Right. It would have been unusual perhaps a few years ago, but now I think it's more and more typical of people in that I competed from around the age of 8 up until I was about 15 when I joined the army, and then I stopped for 2 years or so until I joined the battalion, and I was still young enough to go in for the 18 and unders. I was stationed in London at the time, so I did that. Then we were posted to Cyprus, and that was it. That was it really for about 30 years until I started thinking about teaching. And what I thought was, well, you know, you've got to, if you want people to come to you, you've got to go and put your money where your mouth is and try and get your name in the back of the Piping Times. So we'll come back to that in a minute. So the earlier stuff, very much local stuff, Stirling Mod, every year in the Albert Halls in Stirling, starting off with chanter classes and making my way through to the piping classes. I never won, I got placed, but I never actually won Stirling Mod. Also, and I'm really pleased I did this particular one, was the Muirheads and Sons Pipe Band used to run a competition as well in Grangemouth at Muirheads Sawmills. And that must have been in the winter, because what I can remember from that was tuning up amongst the cut wood in the snow, and then you would go into the canteen and compete in there. So you went from tuning up in the cold, to competing in the extreme heat. And I've got a plaque somewhere from a position at the Muirheads competition. Competing when I was in the army, well, I did a couple of the internal battalion competitions, and I won one of those. I think there was actually only 2 during the time I was in. I was on annual leave for one, and that was it really. I think about 3 in total during my 6 years in. It was a bit of a cheat in that I think I was 18, and while Brian Donaldson, who's a very well-known solo competitor, competed in the adult classes, I would compete in the 18 and under. And I usually won, although I do remember being put in my place once by Jules Smart. I think it was at Aylesbury, and Jules beat me fair and square. But I did have access to sort of better tuition at that time than most people 18 and under in the south of England would have had. Anyway, so big gap, stopped, went to Cyprus, joined the police, joined Strathclyde Police Pipe Band eventually, and joined with folk bands. And then in 2010, I think, I realised that what I was wanted to do after retiring was teaching bagpipes, and I had been doing it for some time by then. But then I began to hatch this Great Glen piping plan. Now, there was a few things happened. I was at Untitled Games watching the solos. There was only 5 competitors in for it, and 4 out of 5 either had a major mistake in their pibroch or they didn't finish their pibroch. And I forget who won. So I was sitting there thinking, all I had to do was get through my pibroch, make a reasonable job of it, and I would at least have got second. And that's great in theory. Of course, I was back the next year, and guess what? I didn't finish my pibroch, but it was a good learning curve. And one thing I'll say about solo competition, certainly in my experience, is it's a very, very open and inclusive society. There's not the same negative comments as you'll hear in the band competitions, usually from the audience, of course. And the encouragement is just phenomenal. So I went there to Glenarcurt, possibly about 2011, my first solo competition, and to be fair, didn't make a really good job of it. But both the judges and other competitors did nothing but encourage me to keep going, and I did. Like I say, the object was to put my money where my mouth is, so the first thing I had to do was get a tutor. At that time it was Willie Morrison from College of Pipe, and later on it was Roddy McLeod. And you do need a tutor for competition, because you need a critical ear at the very least. As we'll cover later on, it's very easy to get into your own bubble where you're hearing what you want to hear, or more importantly, you're perhaps not hearing what another ear might hear. So anyway, just to finish off with my escapades, I entered the Competing Pipers Association in the C grade, as everyone does, and made my way up into the B grade, won a few prizes in the B grade as well, won a few prizes in open competition, and then I've retired from competing about 5 times now due to different things, due to moving, due to not performing very well, and lastly, I now would like to really concentrate on assisting my pupils competing, and that's going very well. So it's time for me to stop it. I last competed at the Athol Gathering this year in May, and didn't make a complete idiot of myself, and I think I'll settle for that. That's it done. So now I can quite happily sit here and tell you what to do, and there's no pressure on me. It's not quite like that. So that's my own competition record. I also have, I'm not on the judges committee, and I have no wish to be on the judges committee, but I have judged competitions, so I know what it's like from the other side. I've judged adult competitions that's not graded, because if I judged a graded competition, I would have to be on the judges committee. I've judged several junior competitions, so I sort of know, and I've been coached in that as well, so I sort of know what the judges are looking for, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. So that's my record, that's my judging experience. First of all, the solo competing system itself differs a little. Your approach shouldn't differ, but the actual systems differ a little throughout the world. So we'll cover Scotland at first, and it's not quite as clear cut in Scotland as it is in other countries. So the first thing we have in Scotland is your general Highland Games, and most competitions at Highland Games are what they call open competitions, which means anyone can enter them. Absolutely anyone can enter them. What I would advise is, if you're going to do that, you're very welcome to do that, but have a look and see what the requirements are at first, because most of these competitions, certainly the adult ones during the summer, will require 3 pibroch, 3 marches, 3 strathspeys, 3 reels, and you may be lucky and get your own choice of horn, pipe or jig. But some will ask for 4. Braemar, in theory, is open, but you need 8 pibroch for that one. So just have a think about it before you decide to do that. Also be aware that in the open competitions, you don't always get written feedback. In fact, you probably won't get written feedback. So the only way to get feedback is ask the judge, approach and ask, what did you think of that? And generally they'll take the time to let you know, especially if you're a new face and you've not done it before. So that's the open competition. Like I say, most Highland Games are open, but just be aware that you will probably be up against, almost certainly be up against the top players, because the demand, we all try and find, I'm not classing myself as a top player there, but we all try and find, for example, in the summer in Scotland, there could well be 3 different Highland Games with piping competitions on that day. And we all sort of try and play a game. Who's going to be at this one? Who's going to be at that one? I wonder where I'll go. And what generally happens is we all end up at the same one. So that's the open, so the Highland Games open, turn up on the day and play competition. I'll come back to that in a minute. The other aspect that we have in Scotland is there is about 9 or 10 competitions which are organised for pipers. They'll still be at Highland Games, but they're organised by pipers under the umbrella of the Competing Pipers Association. And the Competing Pipers Association is graded. The entry level is the C grade. Then we have the B grade, the A grade, where we're actually competing for the gold medal at that point, and the professional. This is where it's a little bit confusing, because a professional graded piper in the Competing Pipers Association is someone who has won at least 1 gold medal. So you've got to watch that term. I mean, you could be a professional piper just because you make money playing at weddings, but you're not a professional piper in the Competing Pipers Association professional grade. So that's that. And I would actually, again, anyone could join the Competing Pipers Association and go straight in at the C grade. And again, that's fine, it is the entry level, but just be aware that 2/3 at least of the pipers in the C grade will be very, very good players. You need your 3 pibroch. There's no set tunes in the C grade. A system that I do like a lot, and a lot of my pupils are in this now, and I'm sort of leading on from the Scottish system, but the CLASP now, the Competing League of Amateur Solo Pipers, which is run by the National Piping Centre, is a worldwide thing, because a lot of the competitions that they run have been live streamed over the past few years. Not live streamed, they've been online competitions over the past few years. And even the ones which take place face to face are open to absolutely anyone to join in. Now, I'm a big fan, I know I've already said that, I'm a big fan of the CLASP system, because I think it's organised very well, it's very well structured, and the most important thing about it is, we've just talked about the open competition, where you don't always get feedback, where actually sometimes you won't get feedback. The beauty of the CLASP system is that you will always get feedback, and you'll get feedback from people who are qualified to give it. So it's going to be worthwhile stuff. So the CLASP used to be divided into 3 grades run by the National Piping Centre. And we've now got 4. We may, I think, actually, they may be introducing a grade 5 as well. simply because of the demand which the lockdown produced. And I think the class was fantastic for that, but there were other online lockdown competitions, but the class was kind of first and foremost, and they're still going, of course, they've kept it going. So entry level just now, I think, is grade 4. Then they run league tables and you can work your way through the grades. Quite informal as well. Again, very, very encouraging. And they also run workshops, both online and at the National Piping Centre. The American system, let's look at the Eastern United States Pipe Band Association system. We have, again, grade 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we have what they would class as professional. So just because you're in the professional grade in the United States does not automatically mean you're going to get a B or an A from competing pipers. So it's completely separate. You may well find that if you've made it to professional level in the States, you're still getting your C grade if you decide to join the Competing Pipers Association. I've always thought now that the US system was in place before the class system, and I have always thought that it's actually a better system. The thing is, of course, we mentioned the Eastern United States, we've got Midwest, we've got Southern, we've got Western, and the system is much the same, but the standards in the grades may differ. I think it's a good thing. Why do I think competing's a good thing? Now, there are one or two who will say there shouldn't be any need for competition, and I would agree with that. I do agree with that. There shouldn't be any need for competition. But competing gives you a reason to practice. Competing gives you a reason to practice, and it gives you structured practice as well, because you're going to be practicing one tune or a set of tunes to be as good as you possibly can at these tunes. And that's a different practice from just getting up every now and again and rattling out Scotland the Brave and Highland Cathedral. It's structured practice. Solo competition, it's you, it's the individual. You are not standing in a band with the comfort of 10 or 15 other pipers around you and having that cushion. And then if someone on the other side of the circle makes a mess of it, well, it's their fault. Competing solo it's you. It is you, and good or bad or indifferent, it's we can't blame anyone else, it's us. So the first thing is, yes, structured practice. For me as a teacher, yes, it makes pupils practice, but they're also in the main going to be getting feedback. Now, what I want to see on that judge's sheet is either not very much at all, or good stuff, or what I don't really want to see is the judge picking up on the same faults as I have. Yes, it confirms what I've been saying, but it means that the student hasn't actually changed that bit for the competition, so they're still doing the same things, and that does happen. What I don't want to see on the sheet is a judge picking up something that a player is doing habitually throughout the tune that I haven't picked up on, because that would be a failing for me then. And actually that's not happened so far. It's all been stuff that I've looked at already. So there's the systems. There's lots more than that. There's the German Association, there's a French Association, there's Australian and New Zealand Association. The ethos of them all is much the same. I know that the Australian and New Zealand have set tunes as well. I don't think the States have set tunes as such. The CLASP has set tunes. It's a big bank of set tunes. Competing Pipers do, but don't forget, if you're in Competing Pipers, well, if you're in the Competing Pipers Association, you probably won't be listening to me, but the set tunes refer to the gold medal, silver medal and CLASP only at the Argyllshire Gathering and Inverness. You don't have to actually stick to the set tunes throughout the year. So on tunes then, excuse me for a second. on tunes. Now we're going to downsize a little bit here because we have covered professional grade in Scotland and the higher echelons of competing. And what we're going to do is we're going to come down a little here and maybe talk about clasps competitors, grade 5, grade 4. The clasp will have set Pibroch there. What I would suggest, so if we just encompass all tunes, what I would suggest is going easy. What we don't want you doing is attempting a tune which is perhaps a little bit too difficult for you and you're having to work really hard at it. Because what we want you doing, especially in the early days, is playing a good tune. We don't really care so much what that tune is, but we want you performing it to the best of your ability. It also means that we don't want you trying to play the tune too fast. Here's a little quote just from yesterday, and I hope if you're watching you don't mind me using it. But on a lot of these tune scores, you'll see the recommended beats per minute. I never talk about beats per minute. It's just a way I've never got around to thinking. And the student yesterday said, when I play it at the correct beats per minute, I'm making all these mistakes, or I'm making crossing noises as it was. Well, that means that you can't play it that fast. But generally, for solo competition, we're actually going to play the tune a little bit slower anyway. So, to simplify things a little bit, you will hear this, yes, you'll hear the same tunes played all the time. Not too much of a problem with that, because they are entry level, let's say 2/4 marches, the 79's Farewell to Gibraltar, Captain Norman or Ewing, maybe getting a little bit more advanced, Donald MacLean's Farewell to Oban. Yes, you're going to hear these all the time, but they're good learning tunes. It's unlikely that you're going to pick out a fantastic 2/4 march, which is perhaps a little bit easier, that the judges haven't heard before. So what I would say is, yes, concentrate on it, perhaps an easier tune that you're going to make a good job of. And don't worry about being too slow. Too slow is one criticism. But if you're playing too fast for your ability and you make 30 mistakes, well, there's 30 criticisms. So please, whatever tune, I'm jumping ahead here, but especially for march competitions, you get up there, the nerves are going, and you want to get right in about your tune. Whatever speed that tune is going at inside here, take a deep breath, let it settle down, and slow the thing down. And remember, where we set the tempo is the very first note. It's that first note. After that, you're off and running, and it's really difficult to slow down and still have the tune being melodic. So, simple tunes rather than difficult tunes. The trade-off there is, if there are two pipers vying for first place and one has played a simple tune perfectly and the other one has played a difficult tune perfectly, then yes, the difficult tune player is going to win. But there's been an element of risk there. And also don't forget that I once had a bit of advice here. This one was from Bruce Hitchens. When you're competing, if you can come off and say, yeah, I made a good job of that tune, well, that's about as much as you can hope for. What happens after that with placings depends on everyone else and how they played. But if you can come off satisfied with that tune, then that's pretty much that's job done. Okay, so tune selection. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid, if you want to use the phrase. Tune selection, here's one from Saturday. I had a pupil in for Highland Games on Saturday, and I hope he won't mind me using this example. The guy who played best, and I'm having a little bit of an educated guess here, but the guy who played best in the slow air competition played something like She Moves Through the Fair or something like that. In slow air competitions, what we're looking for is a traditional two-parted slow air, perhaps a Gallicky or something like that. And he made a very, very good job of it, but he didn't win. And I am guessing a little, because I didn't speak to the judges, but I'm guessing that he didn't win because it really wasn't a two-party traditional slow air that he played. So choose your tunes kind of wisely as far as that goes. The other thing I would say on tune choice, just remember that it is a traditional style of competition you're going in for. So we're looking for reels, for example, play them dot cut. We're not going to say that you're not going to win with an even reel, but you're not going to be placed with an even reel, but to be very simple about it, is going to be better than okay. Now, having said that, I once judged a cadet competition, and a kid came in fact 2 kids came in and played rounds like that, and you can't fault them. You can't fault them, that's the way they've been played. In adult competition, I think, yes, we would fault them for that. It's dot cut traditional settings. Excuse me. Now, as usual, I better break this up and say that this live stream members, our channel members, it's open for everyone. Only channel members can contribute. Neil Clark here from Falkirk Piping, and I'm just going to take this opportunity to mention that we do have CDs for sale. This guy here, pipes and drum, all solo piping by myself, with the exception of one track, which is myself and the missus singing, actually. This one here, Glenn Bervey, is more the folk music side, and has one piping track on it. The rest is small pipes, clarinet, that kind of stuff. Okay, so we've covered tune choice. Traditional, easy. Okay, style of playing. Now we're into the pibroch here, and I'm quickly going to mention what I have seen. Now, there is a school of thought kicking around just now, generated by a crowd called the Alternate Pibroch Society or something like that, who are saying that the way that we play some of the pibroch now is perhaps not the way that it would have been played 200 years ago. Fair one, right? That's okay. No, first of all, no one's saying that the settings in Kilberry are exactly the way that we should play pibroch. Now, we know that already, and that's why we suggest that you go to a teacher who is experienced in pibroch, and they will explain the way that we would like these tunes to be played. Let's get back to the alternative way of playing it. For example, a cadence, we would normally play with the long E. The alternative mob will sometimes hold that we should be playing them, and indeed in some pibroch, that's the way they're played. Now, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You can go and play, you can compete with a pibroch and play it in any style you wish. But here's my experience of it. I had a guy who wished to play the Little Spree in whatever style that he wanted. And I thought, okay, and I coached him through that. That was fine, and he went and played. But on the day, he played a lot of rubbish, actually. Just wasn't even playing as well as he had on the chanter, and wasn't placed. And his complaint was that he was penalised because he played it in this alternative setting, which of course was the right way to play it. That wasn't the case. He didn't get placed because he hadn't played well, and that's what you have to consider. It doesn't really matter what style you use, but you still have to go up there and play proper embellishments, have a well-tuned pipe, not play too fast, play well. Now, I think that's where some of these guys are missing the point. No one is frightened to play an alternative style, but you still need to play well enough to be placed regardless of the style you're playing. Now, I was a bit cautious about that one because I know there's going to be people out there saying, that's wrong, we should be playing it this way, and that's the way it would have been played 200 years ago. Okay, good luck. Absolutely fine, but make a good job of your tune. That's enough about that. So that's the styles. We've covered the dot cut, we've covered the slow air thing. Let's have a look at preparation for competing. Now, what I would say, and this really is the way that I've practiced in bands as well, is every performance or practice that the band takes place in is looked on as a practice for actually competing. Now, I would use your normal solo practice in the same way. So, here's what I did when I was not winning any prizes. I would always start with pipes out the box, check everything's going, a 4-parted 6/8 march, or perhaps 2, and the purpose of that is to settle the pipes down. There's also a sort of vague hope that you might actually get a 6/8 march competition, so you're still practicing your piece as well. But this is to let the pipes settle down a bit. Once the pipes have settled down, because generally 2 4-parted 6/8 marches will see my pipes ready to go for perhaps a march sustain reel or a hornpipe and jig, and they'll hold the tuning enough for that. So after that, what I would be looking at would be perhaps 2 marches, or maybe even the full march, strathspey and reel. And I would be trying to pretty much simulate in my mind actually competing with these. You're trying to play it as good as you possibly can. You're listening for the points which require attention to be improved upon. And yes, you're memorising the tune as well. So after I've done maybe 2 march suspeys and reels, I may or may not do the hornpipe and jig. I would then, if the pipes are ready, move on to at least a pibroch. If you're only competing with 1 pibroch, then it's your 1 pibroch. If you're juggling 3 or 4, which you're going to submit, then it's got to be one of these 3 or 4. Perfect or another tune. That can be perhaps for a time when you don't have competitions looming, because if it's summer, you're going to have competitions looming pretty much every week. Again, listen to the pibroch. The other thing I would do with the pibroch is I would have the music on a stand near at hand, so that you can make your way over there, and if you're not sure of a bit, just check that piece there. So, and that's pretty much my practice. And what I'm doing there is I'm simulating what I would do on the day. If your pipes are going in 10 or at their best in 10-15 minutes of a warm-up, then that's kind of what you're looking for doing on the day as well. So now we're leading into what you're actually doing on the day. Pipe maintenance, it pretty much should go without saying, is your pipes have to be going as well as they possibly can be. You've got to give yourself every advantage, and the first is that your pipes are sounding good. If your pipes aren't sounding good, okay, still get in there, but don't be queuing up looking for your name on the prize list. The other thing, as far as your actual practice goes, is we've talked about the structure of the practice itself, but here's something which is quite an advantage. If you can practice in similar conditions to what you expect to experience on the day, then that's just a great advantage. I had probably my best year was about 2014 or something like that, and a real advantage I had was at the time I was the resident piper at Falkirk Castle, so I was getting a maximum of 4 hours actually playing pipes every day outside in the same conditions as I was going to be playing in, and that was actually a real advantage, because you then get used to how your pipes are going to perform in these conditions, because it's a lot different from playing in an enclosed room or a sheltered area. You learn to deal with the conditions. I'm not saying go and stand out in the rain just to experience what it's like. That's not good for the pipes. But I'm saying if you can get outside, and I know not everyone can, then get yourself outside and experience it. Because it's not just for you, it's not just for your fingers, it's to find out how your reeds are going to perform. An easy reed that's performing well inside will not perform as well outside in the cold and the wet. And you really, if you're going to be competing in Scotland, you have to expect that you're going to have bad weather at some point. I remember at one Athol gathering playing into the snow, and that was the end of May. I got 5th as well, so somebody must have taken pity on me. So yep, if you can get outside, then get outside. The most perfect simulation you possibly could would be to perhaps play where you're going to play on the day. Now that would be possible, for example, for me down at Airth. If the competition was going to take place in like the National Piping Centre and you've got access to that, then go there and have a shot at that. That's a luxury. That's a luxury, of course. Right. So, the other thing I would say is if you have a competition coming up, certainly a major competition, then you need to be playing every day. It's no good having a day off, because you need to try and stay on top of how your pipes are going to be performing. If you leave them for a day, then all sorts of things can happen. Less so with synthetic bags, certainly with sheepskin bags. Something came into my head there and I've forgotten it. It doesn't matter. Okay, let's take you to the day. On the day, when I'm driving to a competition, or when I was driving to a competition, I would have my Pibroch recordings playing in the car right away there, so that it's in my head and I'm pretty much in the zone. I'm very, very antisocial. I'm thinking tunes and I'm thinking my tunes. Go and register. If you've got time, yeah, go and have a wee look about the place, see what there is there. But other than that, get yourself back into the zone, practice your tune. Don't get all uptight about it. You will be nervous. We'll come back to that in a wee while as well. So, go over your tune, make sure the pipes are okay. Don't tune up for too long. Don't tire yourself out. That is a very, very common mistake that beginners and certainly younger people do. I've seen them at Pitlochry. This is the one that springs to mind. Tuning up for an hour. Now, first of all, you're going to be tired by the time you actually go to compete. But secondly, your pipes are probably going to be wet. Voice is going. So not too long. Remember your practice regime, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, to get to the best that the pipes can possibly be. If you're grade 4, if you're junior, if you're not sure how your pipes are going, sort of out on a limb here, but especially if you're a juvenile, there will be other teachers there. Approach them and ask them for help. They will help you, and if they don't, then they're needing a good saying to. Help is there. Let's say you're on. Now, what we want to be doing as well is keep the pipes going until the very last minute. Now, you have to speak to the judge before you go on. Tell them what your tune is. If you know the judge, he might want to talk about your granny or what you were doing last Christmas, and you just want this guy to shut up so that the pipes are still going when you start and they haven't went flat in the meantime. They know that. They all know that. Sometimes, certainly in my case, they're having a little game with you because they know that you're itching to get up there and play, and they'll keep you talking for 5 minutes. So, ha ha ha, very funny. When you start, what we're not looking for, and again, I'm maybe thinking grade 4, grade 5 or junior, is we're not really wanting you to be up there tuning forever. Now, here's the flip side of that. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really want to be demonstrating what's the word? An advance warning of what I'm going to be playing like. So I always cut my tuning down to the minimum, and I'll admit right here and now that that's my weak spot. Standing tuning in front of people, I really feel that the pressure's on. So I tend to go the other way, which is wrong, and think that when the pipes are pretty much in the ballpark, right, we're going for it, you should actually just take your time and make sure you're there. But don't be doing any excessive tuning, any fancy tuning phrases. Nobody's really interested in that. We want to hear your tune. So, pipes are singing. Here we go. One thing for people more in the States here, a lot of competitions, especially in the States, none here as far as I know, require that you will march in your 2/4 march. Now, I think that's wrong because you shouldn't be judged on it, but let's just consider that for a second. We all are a little terrified when we first start marching to our competition march, because it's a strange thing, isn't it? It's not walking normally. It's a kind of strange thing. Let me just suggest that if you're on a board or in a room, then 4 steps forward, turn round, settle down, and 4 steps back, and you have fulfilled the requirement to march. That's you done it. So if you're really uptight about your marching, that'll pretty much do you. And I think we've been talking about 8 steps here. On the other hand, get used to it. It does eventually come quite naturally. And I would march as a matter of course now, including during P-Broch. I would find it hard to actually stand still. So there's the marching. Before you start, you're all tuned up and the pipes are singing, hopefully. Before you start your march or any tune that you're about to commence, have a little listen to it inside here. Now, you can be playing low A at that point, nobody cares. Just settling yourself in. Whatever tune it's actually, whatever speed or tempo it's actually going at inside your head, let's slow things down, because the adrenaline's probably going. Slow things down to start it, slow things down on your first main note, and then if you feel that you can let things go a bit, then by all means speed up subtly during your tune. But it's very hard to start fast and then slow down. Don't forget, when you're playing 2/4s or indeed any tune, what you'll find perhaps 60% of the time is the first 2 parts will be the easier parts. You'll hit part 3 and there's all sorts of stuff happening, and oh, you're going too fast. Well, it's too late to slow down. We would rather you did slow down and actually get it right, but you've destroyed the musicality of the tune by doing it. So deep breath, start nice and slow. Don't stop playing. If you make a major mistake, especially if you're playing in the clasp and you're playing for something where you're going to be getting written feedback, you've probably paid to enter that competition. And what you're paying for isn't the prize money, it's the feedback that you're getting from the judge. So the judge wants to hear your full tune. Don't play part 1, make a major mistake, and then chuck it because you're not going to be placed. We know that. But we do want to give you feedback. And don't forget, most feedback, it may not be positive, but it will be constructive, and it should be given in such a way that you're going to be encouraged and learn from that. So play for your feedback. Don't stop playing. Please don't stop playing. The other thing is, don't forget that you may have heard your performance, maybe a couple of people before you, but you're not going to hear everyone. And you don't get the big picture of a competition from listening to a couple of players. Now, I just earlier talked about a guy perhaps playing the wrong type of slow air, but that's a guess. That might not have been why he was second. It might have been something else. I only heard him playing. So you don't usually get the big picture at a solo competition if you're competing. Actually, on position before you start. I've seen this more in junior competitions and competitions in the States. And what you see frequently is a piper standing pretty much a couple of feet away from a judge, playing into their face. Don't do that. You probably wouldn't enjoy that if someone did it to you. Give them a bit of distance, especially if you're marching, just give them a little bit of distance. Obviously, don't go too far, but a little bit of space. The other thing I've seen happen in the States and not here is sometimes it's not super obvious to the crowd. It would be to anyone with a brain, but I've seen members of the public walk between the player and the judge. Now, at best, that displays a little bit of lack of awareness in your surroundings. At worst, it's rather ignorant. But nonetheless, I know some of you are maybe a little bit worried about that happening, but give the judge a bit of space. They're not getting to hear your pipes properly when they're played 2 feet in front of them. So a little bit further back. I've covered the marching thing. Let's cover a little bit of a delicate subject, and it's the dress and deportment side. Yes, you're being judged on your performance, your musical performance. Please don't think though, if you turn up with the tie down here and the waistcoat open and the sporran back to front, that there won't be a snap judgment made of your playing ability. Give the judge the respect that they should deserve being the judge. Also, don't forget that you're there as part of a spectacle, tidy yourself up, dress yourself properly. Nobody's saying that you have to salute the judge, although I believe in some competitions this may be required as well. I would salute the judge, but that's habit more than anything else. I'm still carrying hangovers from the military days, and also I can actually do it. Some people we don't want to see the big Benny Hill salute. It can actually be a little bit off-putting. So dress yourself properly. More importantly than that, and what I've not covered so far, is make sure that your pipes are maintained properly. No one's going to be impressed by a chanter falling out the stock and you stand and chewing at it. Make sure the pipes are maintained properly. We can all have bad days as far as maintenance goes. One I have from personal experience is competing in Florida, one day off the plane, and it wasn't terrible, but certainly my pipes were a lot sharper than I would have wanted them to be. And had I had a chance to become acclimatised, then I would have adjusted the pipes. Tape is a big thing, especially if you're playing in the wet or the heat. Make sure that any tape on your chanter isn't going to slip. So that's really basic preparation, but that one happens all the time. Going back to Scotland, and still with the tape in mind here, what I've seen doing is, the substance deep heat, Ralgex, that kind of thing. You can carry a towel with that and just rub your fingers on the towel. Don't soak the towel in the stuff, but it helps to keep your fingers kind of warm. And the only downside of that is that it also removes the adhesive on the tape, so don't use too much of it, and make sure that your tape is secured properly. Also, during your actual competitive performance, I would suggest that you don't look at the crowd. Don't let yourself be distracted. Now, it's very easy to say that, but try and get yourself into your own bubble. Whereas all you're concentrating on is yourself and the tune. Now, if we're talking about an 11-12 minute pibroch, that's a lot of time to actually concentrate for. Yes, of course it is. But keep yourself in there. Keep yourself thinking on the individual parts of the embellishments. Not just what's coming next note-wise in the tune, you should know that, but concentrate on the individual parts of the embellishments, and it's really going to help. Don't go, this is down to basic technique now, but don't go for machine gun Cran Lewis. Nobody's interested. We're going for correct Cran Lewis, and you should be able to hear each individual element in that Cran Lewis. One thing here as well is when you're competing with the pibroch, and this is in Scotland, after the pibroch's finished, as everyone knows, we go back and we play the first line again. Now in Scotland, you're not judged on that. So yes, you can relax, but make sure that you make the best job of it that you possibly can as well. Because don't forget, you're going to be back the next week. You're going to be back a month later. The chances are it'll be the same judges, and memories carry over. So you don't want to leave the last impression of you playing as you rushing through the last line of the pibroch, even if you're not being judged. Make a good job of that. It's a professional all-round performance you're looking for. As far as the last bit goes as well, the last part of any tune, and this ties in with don't eyeball anyone in the audience. I can remember a jig competition. Jig competitions kind of go very fast and furious. I was really happy with the way the jig went. And as I got into probably the last line, I looked at the audience and I caught the eye of someone I knew. I'll try and replicate what I did. It was... Now, I would stay on, that's it, finished on the low A. If I was going to finish a jigging competition, I would stay on that low A. But what I did, because I'd caught his eye, and the bag was kind of deflating at that time anyway, and I cut off probably a third of the last note. Now, it might sound a bit nitpicking, but in that particular competition, it was the Duncan Johnson, there was about 50 players in the jig. So the judges are looking for any excuse to discount people from the difficult job of the top 6 places. And I didn't finish the tune. So that's another thing. Don't think you're not in a band when you're competing. You're competing as a solo artist. Make sure that you completely finish the tune. So that generally means you don't get to the end of the tune and think, I'm going to cut off. You're not going to cut off. You're going to finish the tune and then perhaps go down to low A and then cut off. Cut off at your own leisure. I think that's about it. I would always, the last thing is, don't just walk off. Acknowledge the judge. If you've got an audience, even a wee nod, you don't need to bow, you don't need to salute. But even a little nod to them, it's nice. It just shows that you appreciate their being there. So as usual, that was a kind of ramble. I see that there are 7 of you watching. Excuse the rambles, guys. I'm stopping 5 minutes early because the voice is going. I hope that was of use to you. Any questions, fire them at me. As usual, finally, actually, you cannot comment on this unless you're a channel member. Channel members are building up quite nicely. Things that gets you access to, channel members will see most of the videos at least 72 hours before they're released to the general public. Some videos will be released for channel members only, and we want to build up on that in the near future. And lastly, channel members actually get access to these live streams. The difficulty with the live streams is just timing it at a point when people can sit down and watch it. And I also need to exercise my voice a little. So we try and do it at different times every month. This has been the first one at 9:30 on a Wednesday in Scotland. And we'll try and change the next one. The next one will be in August, which is a really busy month. We have, I think, 6 people from different corners of the world coming here to see us when World's Week is on. And that's great. It's a fantastic time of year. Lots of live streaming. I think it's time to go. Thanks very much for watching, folks, and happy piping. I'm still with you.